things got pretty rough out there, and not because the team had a bad day. There were actually some really encouraging moments, but unfortunately, that's not what everyone is going to be talking about after this practice. The injury situation suddenly became the biggest story, and one update in particular is really tough to hear. There are still some questions that need answers, but what we know right now is definitely something every Seahawks fan needs to pay attention to. So before we get into everything that happened, hit that like button and let me know you're here in the comments by dropping a Go Hawks. Jake Bobo's season appears to be in serious danger after a difficult injury development from the Seahawks joint practice in Nashville, and that became the biggest concern from a day that otherwise included several encouraging moments for Seattle. The practice itself was not described as a poor performance by the Seahawks. There were positive plays on both sides of the football, particularly from players competing for positions, but the injury news completely changed the tone of the day. And when it comes to Bobo, the early information sounds especially concerning. There is still no official confirmation of exactly what happened to Bobo's knee, but the information coming out of the practice suggested there could be significant damage, with a potential ACL injury specifically mentioned. Because nothing official has been announced yet, that distinction matters. We cannot say with certainty exactly what the diagnosis is. What we can say is that the expectation discussed after practice was that Bobo's season is more than likely over. That is brutal news for a player who has become such a fan favorite. The frustration is not simply about losing depth at wide receiver. It is also about seeing a player who has worked extremely hard continue to run into health problems. The discussion around Bobo emphasized how much effort he puts into his opportunity every year and how unfortunate it has been to see injury issues repeatedly interrupt his progress. There had been real hope that this could be a healthier year for him. That did not necessarily mean Bobo was automatically going to become Seattle's third or fourth receiver, because the belief expressed was that the Seahawks already had players filling those roles. But his presence still mattered. If somebody ahead of him went down, Bobo was viewed as the kind of player who could step into the lineup and potentially deliver important plays. We have already seen why that belief existed. His big touchdown in the NFC Championship game was specifically highlighted as an example of the kind of moment he could produce for this team. That made the possibility of losing him for the season even more disappointing. There was excitement about what he might be able to contribute if he stayed healthy. And now, before the season has even reached that stage, Seattle could already be looking at life without him. Bobo was not the only Seahawks player who had an injury-related moment during the joint practice. Abe Lucas and Monantoy Foster Jr. were also mentioned among players dealing with issues during the session. The encouraging part is that those situations did not sound as serious as they initially might have appeared. The overall message was that, outside of Bobo, the other injury developments did not seem to be long-term problems based on the information available at the time. The conditions in Nashville were also a major part of the conversation. The temperature was around 80 degrees, but it was described as feeling much closer to 100 because of the humidity. That kind of environment can take a toll on players, especially when they are accustomed to practicing in different conditions. Cramping and other physical issues can suddenly become a factor even when a player initially feels fine. That does not explain every injury, and nobody presented the weather as a definitive cause of what happened. But it was clearly part of the environment Seattle was dealing with during the practice. The difference between the conditions the Seahawks are used to and the humidity they encountered in Nashville was emphasized as something worth recognizing when evaluating what happened throughout the day. Another player who deserves attention from an injury standpoint is Torrey Horton. He apparently has not returned fully yet and is still dealing with his own issue. Again, the message here is not that fans should immediately assume the worst. There was no claim that Horton's situation was season-threatening or that something catastrophic had happened. But his health is something the Seahawks need to continue monitoring because injury concerns have surfaced with him at different times. The hope expressed was that Horton's situation could ultimately look something like what Kenneth Walker dealt with during the previous preseason. Walker missed time during training camp because of injury concerns, but then played the entire year without missing a game and performed extremely well. That is the kind of outcome Seattle would obviously love to see with Horton. Manage the issue now, get him fully ready, and have it become something that does not continue into the season. While the injuries dominated the conversation, there were still legitimate football positives from the joint practice, especially in Seattle's running back room. One of the biggest offensive plays came on a catch out of the backfield from Sam Darnold to George Holani. Holani got involved on what was described as a wheel route and turned the opportunity into a big play and a score. That matters because Holani is fighting for a roster position, and his work continues to make that competition interesting. The evaluation given after practice was that he has done what has been asked of him. When Seattle has asked him to catch the football, he has caught it. When he has been asked to block, he has blocked. And when he has been asked to run the ball, that has been described as the strongest part of his game. The running back situation becomes even more important because Zach Charbonnet was discussed as a player who currently appears likely to begin on the PUP list. Under that scenario, Seattle could keep 3 other running backs initially and then have Charbonnet become the 4th once he returns. Emmanuel Wilson was viewed as having an advantage based on what he has shown during his career, but his missed time has helped keep Holani's opportunity alive. Holani has not performed poorly enough to disappear from this competition. Quite the opposite. His ability to contribute in multiple areas has given Seattle something to think about as the roster decisions get closer. At the same time, Jadarian Price was described as the clear #1 running back at this stage. That does not mean the Seahawks are planning to turn him into a traditional bell cow who handles everything. The expectation discussed was for Seattle to operate with some combination of 2, 3, or possibly even 4 backs involved. Price apparently had another good day in the joint practice, and Sam Darnold was complimentary of him afterward. That continues a pattern from camp, where Price has been one of the players generating positive impressions. Considering the investment Seattle made in him, seeing that progress throughout camp, and then carrying it into this practice was one of the best developments of the day. And that is what makes this joint practice so complicated to evaluate. Seattle did not walk away from Nashville with nothing but bad football. There were players making plays. There were position battles becoming more interesting. The running backs produced encouraging moments, and there were defensive highlights still to come. But when a player as respected and popular as Jake Bobo goes down with a knee injury that could potentially end his season, it becomes almost impossible for anything else to completely overshadow that concern. So, where are you right now with the Seahawks' health situation? Are you comfortable treating this as a next-man-up situation, or does the possibility of losing Jake Bobo for the season make you seriously concerned about how these injuries are beginning to pile up? If you want to stay on top of everything happening with the Seahawks, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button because it really helps the channel. Now, click the video that's on your screen and keep watching, because the latest Seahawks news and updates first, you'll only find them right here.